Are you interested in purchasing a replica diecast similar to the one that Todd Kidd used to win this year's Ajax 200, the one that defending champion Cameron Atwood used to win the first night race at Disney, the one that Todd Kidd used to win his 10th milestone Ajax Cup victory at Belltown, or the one that Laquon Scransen used to win under the lights in the Ajax All-Star race? Well, if you are, you're in luck. Head on over to Circle B Diecast Plan B Sales and use coupon code ASCA on any orders $20 or more to acquire free shipping at checkout.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the ASCA Weekly Podcast. I am your host, Charles Fallon, back in here for another episode. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to cover this week. What a race that was at Colgate. Depending on what your cup of tea is, if you don't like the most promising young talent in the sport battling with the most talented veteran driver in the sport, then I don't know what to tell you. I know the first 3/4 of the race were mediocre at best, but it was all kind of a build up to the conclusion, the finale. You get what I mean. We'll talk about that, of course, a lot. We're going to talk about our points leader and how close he is to potentially scoring that record tying championship number that he has an opportunity to do if he can hold on for another 7 weeks. We're also going to talk about the defending champion and his surprising struggles in 2024. We're also going to be talking about the track that the race took place on Colgate. Was that the final race there? We're also going to be talking about a rising star that might be making his way, not might, he will be making his way to the Cup Series soon if he keeps it up. We'll be talking about him as well, what he did, a famous last name finally getting their big break at the Cup level, and then covering the two short track races in Craftsman and Cup upcoming this weekend. So yeah, it's a busy show, jam-packed episode for you guys, the two of you that listen to this, of course. And yeah, so we're gonna get into it. But first, we gotta remind you this episode is sponsored, or not sponsored, but yeah, presented by Rowdy Energy and our premier partners, Rowdy Energy, Circle B Diecast. Come on now, you already know the drill. And we also have another premier partner as well. Shout out to at Paint Scheme Stalker on Instagram. Go follow him as well. But yeah, Rowdy Energy, you know the drill of Rowdy Energy, man. You need a refreshment to help keep you awake throughout the rest of this podcast. Rowdy Energy's got your back. So head on over to the ASCA's link tree, click that top link, go ahead and shop yourself some Rowdy Energy. I don't know why you wouldn't. And then also Circle B Diecast. If you want to buy Diego's milestone 25th career victory diecast, hey, head on over to Circle B Diecast, Plan B Sales. Go cop that. You might as well go cop Todd Kids Windows 300 Victory as well, and then use coupon code ASCA to receive free shipping on any orders $20 or more. So once again, shout out to the sports premier partners, Paint Scheme Stalker, Rowdy Energy, and Circle B Diecast. So let's get into it. Basically, if you watched last Saturday's Colgate 199, it kind of felt like the entire race was building up to something at the end. Laquon Scransen was just in another zip code all weekend long. It seemed like, he was fastest by 5/10 over, I believe it was Randall Woods in opening practice, qualified on pole by like 4/10 over Bryn Renard, and then was fastest in happy hour over Diego Orkedi. So, when they dropped the green flag, Scransen was going to be the man to beat. And boy, was he ever. He got the green and just pulled away. Like his prowess on these restarts at such a young age is insane. How he's able to just drive off and leave these guys every single time. And normally when he's not leading, he ends up laying back and generating a huge run. But this time he was leading on both restarts and he just set sail and really left these guys in the dust on, both of the restarts in this race. So you already had that to factor in. Then you had to factor in how dominant of a car Scranton had. That car just cut through the center of the corner, that giant corner that's Colgate is, so well. And I really like it was really looking like, okay, this kid's really gonna lead all 199 laps, isn't he? And I think the only foil to Scranton that I had in mind, once Randall Woods' car kind of fell off a cliff midway through the race, the only foil I had for anyone spoiling this race for Scranton was Diego Orkedi, because he had driven his way up from fifth to second kind of relatively early on. I believe he passed Randall Woods from like lap 66 or something. So from fifth to second. And he really, you were like, okay. Well, Orkidi is up here now. So what's gonna be the deal with Orkidi here? And the reason I had a sneaking suspicion about Orkidi is he's been in this position before, except the roles were reversed. Remember 2018, where Heidi had the car to beat all weekend, swept the practice sessions, qualified on pole, and he was so fast when the race began. I think he led 177 of 200 laps that day or something, and but for some reason, towards the end of the race, Jimmy Hood started to run the top, and Orkidi's car started to fade a little bit, and Hood ended up kind of blowing by Orkidi on the high side. Then a caution came out, and Orkidi got the lead back in the pits, and then they had that Titanic battle late in the race with 5 laps to go. Hood trying to make the pass around the outside of Orkidi. Orkidi gets into him. Hood makes an incredible save, completes the pass, drives off, and leaves him. The rest is history. So I was thinking about that and then how it kind of related to this situation, and that Orikidi now was going to be the guy that's experimenting. And it's safe to say that his experimenting here works, because I mean, he had won here 3 times prior to Saturday. So he knows what he's doing when it comes to finding speed at Colgate. So on a pinch, when he needed to find something to beat the 42, he's gonna figure it out eventually. And something else that also helped him was the amount of pit stops for fresh tires. And I mean, there were a bunch because the tires go off 40 to 45 laps here. And we had the race had an incredibly green flag look to it, which is shocking because normally we see and minimum 2 to 3 cautions every time we visit Colgate. But in this race, there was only one, only the caution for Doug Bowden. So I'm really shocked that after such a grueling 300 race, you come back 6 days later at a track this tough, and no one really made too many mistakes. Everyone was able to keep it under them. So shout out to the field for that one. And really, just a battle at the end between Orkidi and Scranton. You knew that Orkidi was getting closer and closer and closer to finding something. And then finally, it clicked. 24 laps to go. Orkidi finally, gets the outside of Scranton. And then Scranton makes his first mistake of the afternoon. It gets a little loose, slides up off the bottom, and Orkidi was like, okay, it's my time to pounce. And he was really riding that cushion, rewriting it as close to getting off the track as you possibly could with without doing so, and obviously finding speed. That's what Orkidi was doing, rim riding it. And I mean, he let it all hang out. And it's the mark of a 3-time champion for you. It's the mark of a driver that's won in this sport 20, 24, 25 times. The mark of the highest paid driver in the sport. I don't know if there's any other driver in the field, not even Randall Woods, because Randall Woods has a stick. He's got to be right on that bottom lane, or he's not going to do it. And so I don't think he would have even ventured up to the top. And then everyone else, I don't think they could have made the right call, made the right adjustment to get Scransen and get in his zip code and rattle his cage. I mean, the top two were like half a lap ahead of the rest of the competition at the end of the race. It was ridiculous how much faster they were. I think only what 7 cars finished on the lead lap. It was those two were in a league of their own compared to basically everyone else. So I have to give this 22 team credit. The crew chief Sheldon Price and the job that he has done installing finesse in Diego Orkedi, because this is a new Orkedi that we have never seen. Um, in Orkedi with driving with patience, driving with finesse, not letting his anger get the best of him, not driving through people, making clean passes. This is an Orkedi we've never seen, and that's a scary thought for the competition. And you can kind of see the rewards kind of reaping after all the bad luck he had towards the end of last season. Now you could say he's quote unquote getting lucky with his 2 wins this year, because he hasn't had the dominant car in either of those races that he's won. He's only won 42 laps this entire season, yet he has 2 wins. So, and then you look at his consistency overall, which kind of brings me to my next point. Is anyone going to be able to catch Diego in points? 7 races to go. Orkedi now has 2 wins and a 19-point lead over Shane Park. And he has, what is it, 8 straight top 6 finishes. 8 straight top 6 finishes, man. At the top level of this sport, with how competitive things are in this day and age, let that sink in for you. I mean, it's insane what he has been able to do. Since his DNF at Ajax, uh, and that's like he doesn't even have elite speed on a weekly basis. Like they're not. There's things that they can do to improve and make that car faster, and that's a scary part for the competition. Orkedi is just bringing home the max of what that car is capable of right now. Sometimes being above and beyond, because I don't think if things went, you status quo, he probably wouldn't have won his 2 races. So basically, there's more speed for them to find. And so if I'm Shane Park, if I'm Todd Kidd, I'd be extremely scared right now. Can anyone catch him? If it's gonna be anyone, it's gonna have to be Parker Kidd. I mean, they're the only ones within 30 points of Orkedi at this point. But I look at the way this 22 team has been running. I look at the tracks that are coming up next on the schedule, the final 7 races of the season, and I still say advantage Orkedi. So, we'll see at the end of the day if anyone can track Diego down. But right now, my answer is no. I I just it 19 points, that's a lot to make up unless Urquidy has a slip up and Park can come out and win a race. That's certainly one way to do it, but it's gonna be tough. So man, it's looking like Urquidy is barreling straight towards that Ford championship. Just scored his milestone 25th win. He's already won. He's got a decade-long winning streak now. I mean, what more can this guy do to just kind of punctuate his place in the ASCA's history books? He's insane. He really is insane. And the crazy part is he's 33 years old now and he's still performing like this on a weekly basis. It's just mind blowing how he and Woods are able to keep this up on a weekly basis, week in, week out. They're still performing at a high level. Even Woods, he's had some struggles this season, lack of speed here and there, but I mean, he's still like what, fifth in points right now at 36? That's insane. So moving on from a couple of past champions to the defending champion. And boy, what a nightmare of a season that 2024 has turned into for Cameron Atwood. The last time he brought home a top 10 finish was his win at Disney over a month ago. It's been that long since he last brought home a top 10 finish, let alone a top five or a victory. So, and this is a guy, Cameron Atwood, had 4 wins this time last year, 4 wins in the first 8 races of last season. This year, he's got 4 DNFs and only 1 win on the campaign. I think he says like eighth or ninth in points. Um, it it's it's starting to turn into panic time, I think, for Atwood. This is really starting to get concerning for me for him. He's seventh in points, actually. Seventh in points, but he's tied with Jared Ayers. 61 back with 7 races to go. I think you can throw him defending his title out the window at this point. If I'm Atwood, it's just trying to build momentum for next season because the DNFs this year obviously are starting to rack up 4 and 9 races. That's ridiculous. Atwood only had 2 all year last year. I think he only had 2 or something like that in 2022 as well. So, man, he can't seem to buy a break. The month of April was just a total nightmare for him. And I guess he used all his luck up last year, which is a shame. But I think if he cannot perform at Advocare and at least bring home a top 5 finish, ideally he would obviously want to win there to defend his title from winning this race last season. And when you look at the schedule, it actually does kind of line up for him to be able to make a run at it in these final few weeks. Like you look at Advocare, he won there last year. Look at Denver, he won there last year. You look at the Stone Yard, he won there last year. You look at Computer, he won there last year. I mean, he won at 5 different types of tracks. So yeah, he obviously he won 5 races last year. He won at a lot of different places. Overall, this 17 camp needs a pick me up, and they need one badly. So, like I said, if they cannot run well at Advocare this weekend, and they can't run well at Denver, Ajax, that's a toss up. Who knows on that one? But if they can't run well at the Stone Yard track that he swept last year, um, finished second earlier this season to his teammate Chris Barrymore, then I'm like, okay, then we need to take a look at this and kind of see what's going on here. But I do think, as long as Atwood isn't caught up in any incidents or anything like that, which, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them considering how awful his luck has been. You could say none of the DNFs, honestly, were directly his fault. 2 of them were mechanical. The other 2 were accidents. Nothing he could do about any of them, really, in terms of from a driving perspective. So, it is what it is. It sucks for that team. It sucks for his title defense. I know he recently did get engaged as well to Peyton List, so shout out to Cameron on that one. But man, he needs some serious help, a serious shot in the arm. So hopefully for his sake, they can get it at Advocare this weekend. Now, moving on to another topic of discussion from Colgate. And the question is, was that the final race at Colgate? Because reportedly, the ASCA and the track officials are really far apart on getting a deal done to make sure that the 1 mile Springfield, Illinois based track returns to the schedule for next season. And I really think it'd be a travesty. If Colgate's not back on the schedule next year, I think it'd be an absolute travesty. This is, we've been racing here for a decade plus now. The drivers, some love it. Obviously, some like Nick Orkedi hate it, and for good reason, because if you missed it, Nick Orkedi had to go to the hospital for motion sickness and fainting post race, but luckily he is a-okay, 110%. He'll be back on track at Advocare. But it would be truly a shame if this is the final race at Colgate. Um, it's such a unique track, such like just one giant left-hand turn, such a unique concept that you really don't get anywhere else on the schedule. So, I know that some races here can be snoozers, but we've seen so many fantastic finishes here as well. I look at Ryan Braun scoring his first win here in 2014, Tim Willis in 2015, shocking the world. Um, you want to go back a little bit, 2018, Orkedi and Hood and that Titanic battle. 2021, Todd Kitten, his late race restart pulling away. And then just last year with Bryn Renner and what he did, with Randall Woods with 5 laps to go. And then on Saturday between Orkedi and Scransen. Like that's the racing that this track provides. And it's a track that separates the men from the boys. The cream always seems to rise to the top here. I mean, look at, what we saw throughout most of the day. The top 5 was filled with veterans. You saw guys like Bryn Renner, Norm Lester, obviously Diego, Randall Woods, Todd Kidd, outside of really Park and Scransen, there really weren't too many young guys up at the front. And it really, like I said, it separates the men from the boys. The cream rises to the top here. That's why Orkedi has 4 wins here. That's why Woods has 2 wins here and a plethora of top 2 finishes. So I really hate to see this track removed from the schedule. It's so unique and just provides such fantastic racing, so many memorable finishes in ASCA history. I'd really hate to see it removed. So it'd be a travesty if it was, but we'll see. Hopefully the ASCA officials and the track officials can work out a deal, but um, we'll have to see. It is what it is if it does end up leaving the schedule. So that's pretty much it on that. So we move on from the star of the Blue Oval Brigade, who's been the star of Ford for the face of Ford for like the past decade, in Diego Orkedi. We move on from him to the future of Ford, and that is one Graham Doherty. Man, he is probably the most special prospect I've seen behind the wheel of a blue oval in a really long time. I'd have to say probably since Chris Barrymore. I know that you could look and say Devin Smith, and it's tough with Smith. I think Smith certainly obviously was special with what he did. 4 wins in your rookie season is absolutely unheard of. And obviously had so much hype surrounding him. But he was 21? He didn't, he was on the older side when it comes to prospects. Darty's 18 and he has 3 career Craftsman wins. Like, let that sink in. I'm talking like teenager. Like that is insane stuff. And what Graham Doherty has been able to do over the course of a 6-day span, he wins the biggest race of the Craftsman season, the TreatMyPC.com 150, dominating fashion, had that incredible restart, drove off and left the field. Then he follows that up by winning pole position at his home track, absolutely driving off, blitzing the field, leading all the laps, and winning the race to secure the free year-long Tinder Gold subscription. So Graham Doherty has been on a roll as of late, and back-to-back victories. He now extends his championship lead to 14 over the defending champion, mind you, Colin Ward. So, and Doherty, man, like when we look at the tracks that we go to again, um, Disney finished what, third there, the best of the Craftsman regulars earlier in the season. Um, he finished third there. Then we move onwards to Denver. He's never raced there before, so that's kind of a toss up. Don't really know what to expect once there. Ajax, again, that's another toss up. But the Stone Yard, another toss up. So he's gonna have his work cut out for him. But then we look at the final two races of the season. Advocare, obviously, that's where he scored his first career win in a photo finish over Colin Ward last season. And then you got Belltown, where he finished second earlier in the campaign. So, man, I kind of look at it, and the three short tracks on the final six races of the season, I think that really bodes well for Doherty. Not that Colin Ward is a bad short track racer or anything, but I really think, especially with the incident that happened to Marcus Edwards on the last lap, I think this has become a two-horse title race between Doherty and Ward. And, if Doherty's able to pull this off, man, that at 18 years old, at 18 years of age, to beat a driver as special as Colin Ward, to knock him off, that that would be insane. And I think that it would propel him even past Chris Barrymore when it comes to the most talented forward driver prospect we've seen enter this sport. So, I look at that and man, so that I think is certainly going to be something to watch going forward. Just kind of seeing how Darty continues to progress. Can he hold off Ward in this championship battle? But he's been on a roll um, over that little 6-day span last week, and you got to give him his props for that. He does at least get a little bit of props for it with that, free Tinder Gold subscription. That'll certainly help out a bit. But man, so shout out to Graham Darty continuing to do big things at such a young age, and he is truly, truly special. Now we get to discuss a little bit of silly season, and we're going to be talking about Tommy Woods finally getting his big break at the cup level after 7 years of Craftsman racing. 7 years of Craftsman racing from 2018 to 2024. He now finally gets his opportunity to shine in pretty solid equipment. Flores Motorsports isn't great, obviously, but Lucas Imbert has brought home top 5 finishes in that number 95, which will be renumbered to 23 for next season. And Tommy Woods will get his opportunity to be behind the wheel of that race car for this upstart team. And it's an interesting hire, honestly. I feel like they were kind of in the Bryn Renard sweepstakes, but Renard is going to be commanding so much money whenever he signs that contract that I think that they kind of backed out and they said, okay, who's our next best option? We know we want to get younger, but obviously we don't have a bunch of money to shell out to offer Graham Doherty a big contract or something like that to poach a Ford driver or poach a driver from the Chevy pipeline like a Colin Ward or something. We don't have buku bucks to offer him. So let's go to the Michael White Racing Craftsman pipeline. And, Dustin Adams has had his moments this season. He's shown flashes, but I think the final lap of the Tinder 125 showed he ain't quite ready for the big leagues yet. Not at all. So I think Tommy Woods is the safest bet. But does he have much upside at the cup level? I mean, you're hiring a guy that is currently 15th in the point standings. 14th in the point standings. Not much better, but a little bit better. 14th in the Craftsman Series point standings. You're hiring a guy that DNF not even a full lap into his Windows 300 Ajax Cup debut. You're hiring a guy that has, I believe, a career high finish of like fourth or fifth in the standings, and that was like a half decade ago. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that I question how much upside Woods has, and I I know they were able to get him for cheap. I know it's only a 1-year deal. I know he also has sponsorship, but when it comes to upside, especially on a young team like this, if you're going to go younger, you might as well, um, I think, have taken a swing on a guy like it Adams if you're gonna go for a younger option. Because Adams, I think, has far more upside than Woods does, and it's nothing to take away from Tommy Woods. It's just I question this a bit. I really do. I'm happy that Tommy was able to get his big break in the Cup Series. And I know it's going to be awesome to have two Woodses and two Barrymores on the grid full time next season. But overall, was this the right move for Flores? I think we're going to look back in a couple years and we're going to say maybe they should have gone with someone else in the spot. But that's just me. That's just me. That's kind of where I sit on that one. So I think it's probably for the best that they didn't rush Dustin Adams up the Cup, but I question how Cup ready Tommy Woods even is at this point in his career with how much he has struggled. Because it unfortunately for him, it just doesn't seem like he's been the same since his little broken leg accident in the treatmypc.com 150 a couple years ago. But hoping for all the best for him. And hopefully he can prove me wrong and really do some big things in 2025. Next up, we head onwards to a couple different short tracks on two completely different ends of the country. Cup Series is on the West Coast. They're racing at Advocare, San Diego, California. Craftsman Series, they're racing at Disney, Orlando, Florida, East Coast. So two completely different sides of the spectrum. Normally, obviously, this weekend takes place much earlier in the season, and normally, Advocare would be a Saturday night race, and Disney would be a Sunday afternoon matinee. But obviously, with Advocare now being a day race, things are flip flopped a little bit. So Disney will be taking place on Friday afternoon, and then Advocare will be taking place on Saturday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. So it's going to be a very interesting weekend. I think we're going to learn a lot about the championship fight in both series. I think it's a huge weekend for Colin Ward and Graham Darty specifically at the top of the standings. This is huge. I think if one of them can bring home a win, especially if it's Darty going back to back to back, I think you can write this championship off. It's over. And I don't mean to say that lightly with Ajax still being on the schedule. I just mean that you can't stop this kid if he goes back to back to back. I'm just saying. But it's really going to be tough. I think Ward and Darty are obviously going to be the two men to beat. Ward because he just absolutely annihilated the field in this race last year, and then Darty finished the highest of the Craftsman regulars in the race earlier this season. Granted, that is because he did in part get into the back of Colin Ward, move him out of the way, and I don't think Colin Ward forgot about that. So if I'm Graham Darty, you're leading the 9 car late in the race. I would not expect to be raced cleanly. I'm just going to leave it at that. But overall, I think my picks for this weekend got to go with Colin Ward for Craftsman because, again, why would I not pick Colin Ward for a Craftsman race? But then on the Cup side of things, I think it's a bit more interesting. And Greg Healy and Cameron Atwood obviously have had kind of down years. They're nowhere close to the championship fight, and they only have one win combined between themselves this year. Haley hasn't even won a race this season. So they really need to get off the schneid, and I'd be shocked if neither one of them win this race. So my pick, though, it's going to be Atwood. Atwood, I think, more so needs to pick me up than Healy. Healy's started to get things back on track, even though he finished, 11th at Colgate last week, a lap down. He has never been great there. See his DNF there in 2023. But, I I think that Atwood, he needs a big week. He needs a bounce back. I think he's going to be able to get that this weekend. So my picks, the two defending champions, because why wouldn't it be? They both won on this exact weekend last season. So why wouldn't I pick them to repeat that feat? Ward and Atwood, give me both of them to win and to get their seasons right back on track. But, ladies and gentlemen, to the two of you listening to this podcast, that's it. That is a wrap for this week's show. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Appreciate Rowdy Energy, Paint Scheme Stalker, and Circle B Diecast Plan B Sales for being the premier partners of the sport and the podcast. Remember, you want any replica diecast of the ones you've seen in the ASCA this season, head on over to Circle B Diecast. Use coupon code ASCA for free shipping on any orders $20 or more at checkout in the US only. But that's it for this week's edition. We're going to see you after some fantastic, I'm sure, short track racing upcoming at Advocare in Disney next week. Should be a fun one. So definitely looking forward to it. We're going to learn a lot about the championships, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you like what you listened to today. This is Charles Fallon signing out.